account to say that it went well.
Mr. Abia, shouldn't we be sort of ranking this election or rating this election against the number of registered voters, those who actually collected their PVCs, which is over 98%, and that's really high, and not against the last election? Because if you have maybe 20%, we will find out the numbers much later. But if you have, Young Africa has said they were expecting about less than 20%, but let's say they even do 25%, that's still very low compared to 98.8% of voters who actually collected their PVCs. Shouldn't that be the yardstick to rate it and then find out what the gaps are?
Of course, there's no doubt that that should be the yardstick. That should be the right yardstick to compare with. In the last election in 2021, there was about 10% of registered voters that turned out to vote. But why it's important to also compare notes with the last election is to see whether there has been some level of improvement, even if not as appreciable as we would have wanted it to be. But looking at what was and what is, to see whether there's some level of appreciation. Overall, I think if the number of registered voters does not go up to a certain percentage, we will still say that it's not yet to huru, that more work needs to be done to get it up to from 50% and above. But I don't expect that in this particular election. Maybe something less than even 20%, but better than the last one in 2021.
Now, looking at the demography, we just spoke with one of our reporters, and he said that there's still a low turnout in terms of youth participation. What do you think can be done to actually improve this? Because most of them will rather be on the field playing football instead of going out to actually cast their vote and exercise their right and determine who decides their future for the next 4 years.
Yes, it's all about voter confidence. If the voters are confident in the electoral system, that's why it's important that the electoral management body ups its ante in terms of organizing the elections, and then all agencies involved in the electoral process, including the security agencies, will up their ante to ensure that the elections are free, fair, and credible. For instance, if we have this election, if this election happens to be have some appreciable level of being free, fair, and credible, then you find out that in future elections you will have higher turnout. For instance, the youth are people you would expect that if they voted, they will also expect that their votes will count. So if in previous elections they didn't get that, there's a sense of that things will still continue to be that way in future elections. So we have to get it right, and getting it right at one time will also yield something better in future elections.
Let's bring Mr. Wangu back to the conversation, because the point that Benga has raised is very crucial. It's not just for Anambra election, it's something that we see most times in elections where the elderly, who really would say, well, in terms of deciding the affairs of the nation, that burden should be off their shoulders now and be placed on the youth. They turn up more for elections that will have young people. Is that a demonstration of faith in a democracy or lack of it? Or, to what extent voters actually feel secure?
Well, we also have to unpack the demography that participated in the voter registration, because voter registration is also part of the electoral process. So if you are talking about turnout during election, there are a lot of other issues that play. For Anambra, you have to get back to, say, 2017. You have to then get back to 2013, thereabout, and see what the figures were. The figures were still abysmally low. In 2017, it was about 14%. And in 2021, 10%, which is very above even a national average. So what could have been the reason? There are many reasons that you could. First, there are socio-cultural considerations. How do the people see government? What does government mean for them? Is government very absent in a way that they don't feel a connection to it? If people drill their own boreholes, they provide water for themselves, they provide power for themselves, they provide, health for themselves. Sometimes what it means is that there is no connection. You have to improve governance at all levels to be able to excite the people about why government matters, why government is important for them. That's one part of the conversation. Another one is, what is the quality of civic education that is available? Do people understand the power of the PVC? Do they understand what that permanent voters card really means in terms of how it controls whether they can even open their shops and when they can open it, that somebody who controls that state can determine that he wants to fumigate on the Chame market for 2 weeks and can decide to close it down. That's the power of government. And so if you don't have input in who controls your life in the way that it affects you directly, and you stay absent and say, oh, voter confidence, how do you know whether election will be properly conducted if you don't participate? You don't stay somewhere. And truth is that substantially power has been returned to the voter. That is why you continue to hear the issue about vote buying. The meaning of vote buying is that the politician now recognizes the power that the voter carries and goes to him or her and says, let me give you money for you to go to vote for me. What the voters are doing with that power is also important in putting on the table for conversation. Now, so quality of civic education, quality of governance, and the infrastructure of election generally is also part of why you have low voter turnout. Low voter turnout does not mean the same thing as apathy. Apathy will mean the whole gamut of the process, which includes voter registration. Why are people going to collect PVCs? Why are people going to register? They are told that the amenities that come to their community has something to do with their voting strength. And your voter's card is also an free identity card. If you want to have international passport, you pay money. If you want to have driver's license, you pay money. But if you want to have a voter's card, you don't pay anything. All you need to do is queue up and get it. So we have to de-incentivize a situation in which the people have no connection to their day-to-day connection with government, and make government more relevant for the people, especially in the Southeast geopolitical zone.
Well, I like the fact that you mentioned voter inducement, vote buying, and also voter education. I might want to think that I thought political parties should be responsible for voter education. Why are they not doing it? And also in the area of vote buying, every election, most of the time we see EFCC, showing their presence at the polling stations, but yet vote buying still goes on, left unabated. My question is, how effective has it been, even though we have EFCC right there, and yet vote buying still takes place?
Well, the ingenuity of our political class needs to be studied. Because they've taken voter inducement away from the polling unit area. And what the law covers is the polling unit area. If I transfer money to you a day before election, you can't possibly, under the current regime of laws, hold me responsible. If I ask you to go to a POS in a particular area, go and take money to vote, and it is not within the polling unit area, you can't go to every POS person and say, why are you dishing out money to people? So we have created lacunas in the law, and unfortunately for us, the people who also make the laws are politicians who deliberately leave these gaps. So we have challenges with consequence management as well. So the police will wriggle his hand and say, oh, it is INEC that needs to activate. If people are doing the wrong thing, INEC needs to tell us to arrest those people, which is a dereliction of responsibility, because the law empowers you to enforce all laws. And all laws means whether they are electoral offenses or whatever offenses that people commit during elections. There is no particular, if somebody, beats up someone during election, it is a crime under the law, ordinarily. It does not matter whether it is committed during elections. So we also have the issue of, now you hear police say we deployed 45,000 thereabouts boots on the ground. But what is this? How do we rate the service delivery? Who counts the 45,000? What does it mean in terms of the number of, offenders that are arrested? So until most of these consequence management issues are put on the table, people who commit crimes will get away with it. And by the way, there is Anambra. You also have the issue of promissory notes, where people have made promises and said, if you vote for me, I will give you so amount. They are taking advantage of the lacuna in the law, but everyone knows that that is voter inducement, even if it is a promissory note in the true sense of it. So the challenge is the lacuna in the law and the attitude, the character, the nature of the kind of political class that we have that is always more interested in dubious advantage than in obeying the law as we see it currently.
Interesting comment made there. Please stand by for us, Mr. Wangwa, Mr. Abia, as we get more updates from the field. Now, barring any last-minute change, voting is expected to have ended at 2:30 p.m. until the last person on the queue votes. Sorting and counting has commenced in some polling units. Voting started early in most polling units, monitored, and although there have been allegations of vote buying, the exercise have been largely reported as peaceful. TVC News senior reporter Iken Amici is with the Independent National Electoral Commission. He joins us live on Anambra Decides. Iken, give us update. I know you are with INEC. Has INEC reached any decision on this in terms of when voting should end at polling units?
All right, Precious. We know the timing for the INEC for the voting to actually be concluded once it starts by 8:30 in the morning. And then by 2:30, nobody is standing on the line. Definitely, that polling unit will be, the result there will be collated and the result announced. So, but what we are seeing is that there are a lot of polling units that we have a lot of people still on the queue, while it's still by 2:30. So definitely, what the law is that they should vote or they should cast their vote before they can close that polling unit. So we have a lot of, there are still some that have. We thought that probably they will have a lot of turnout of voters, but like what we have witnessed in past election, there have been voter apathy in some polling units in Okasats that I monitored, and though you say that there are measurable size, some commendable sizes of voters that came out in some parts of the state, but I'm right here at the session room of the United Nations supported Democracy for Nigeria governance, and they actually, on what is happening on the feed right now about the issue of vote buying, which has really raised ugly heads, and with a sophisticated way of actually these people perpetrating this art of vote buying. And of course, there are places of intimidation on the feed, and the security situation where even a core member was actually missing up. But all of them, it's been for a averagely good conduct of election in Anambra governorship election.
Okay.
No major incidents per se.
All right,
Precious.
All right, tell us more. What's going on? Talking about cases of vote buying. What more can you tell us?
Now, because of the attention has been drawn to vote buying, and because people are monitoring, there's a sophisticated way of actually buying these votes. Transfers or giving signs and all that at the polling units, who you vote for, and then there are people who are there monitoring, and definitely after that they will send the money to the person that has done their bidding. So I think that the people that are perpetrating this are learning new tactics in buying people's conscience in voting. So that's one of the things that was noticed in this election. And of course, we have people being intimidated. And then,
all right, permit me to button. I mean, this doesn't look like the INEC situation room. Where are you? And also, why are you not at the INEC situation room to tell us what exactly is going on there?
Okay, we are not at the INEC situation room right now. We are the observer situation room, the European Union observer group. They actually are monitoring this election as well across the length and breadth of Anambra State. So we're here to actually sample their opinion on independently monitoring this election to ensure that, it's not that what the electoral body is dishing out, but what they have observed from their own independent sources. And they have all their members, all their staff across these 21 local government areas of Anambra State monitoring. And I actually encountered one of them representing TAF. She went to Mbauku, where we monitored the polls there, and she was there sending her report of what she has experienced on the field. So we saw that a lot of feedback from them, which are unfiltered, because they observed independently, and they're telling us that there are some places, even in a situation in Ihiala, there a police officer just ignited, spread tear gas, for no just cause, and though it was brought into control, but it was actually scary when you have a tear gas in a polling unit or in an election. It actually spark fear when you know that those areas are actually called flashpoint area, like Ihiala, Aguata, Arumba North, and all that. And we actually had the DG of the National Youth Service Corps visiting unit in Oka South here, and he expressed, optimism that the welfare of the corps members handling, the election as ad hoc staff are actually taken care of by the electoral body. And he was just monitoring and seeing that, assuring the corps members that their security is top notch and that they are taken care of, because they are always, a subject of some of all these attack and intimidation.
All right, Ikenna, we will get back to you, I'm sure, because you are in a very strategic place where you have the observers. We'll get back to you to get their preliminary reports of events so far. But that's our reporter, the senior reporter live for us at the situation room where you have observers in Anambra State monitoring that election. But let's get back to our conversation with our guest. Let's now go to Mr. Abia. Mr. Abia, I'm sure you've been following reports from our reporters as well in terms of the conduct of this election. The candidates are saying one thing, but the observers and security agencies are saying a different thing. And sometimes I'm wondering if, especially in terms of vote buying, candidates have said they have seen other candidates inducing voters. Do you think that that's just a political statement to sort of make the opponents look bad, or that the police are not really, in terms of being up to task of catching, even if AFCC, of actually catching those who are involved in voter inducement?
You would have noticed that even some reports actually mentioned that. But what you find out is that politicians have actually devised new means of doing this. So what you find is that sometimes they have to call people out and then get this money across to them, not at the polling station now, not at the polling unit now, but somewhere aside. Sometimes you might see this money is being given through POS, or sometimes you found that a candidate actually promised that to send different sums, to different people if he gets their votes. So there are different means, which politicians have devised to do these things. So I don't think the candidates or their supporters who are mentioning these things are just crying blue mother when there's nothing. I believe that, to an extent, it is possible that some of these things have happened in certain areas.
All right, Mr. Nwagu, talking about voter participation, voter turnout, and some want to argue that the level of education, when you compare the northern Niger to the south, okay, the south actually comes out first. But when it comes to voter turnout and political awareness, the north is always, at the front burner. You're always trying to be, talk about voter turnout is always high. I want to ask, why is this so?
Okay, they are still on your visual.
Well, it's a pretty a bigger conversation.
Go on, Mr. Wangu, we can hear you.
I said this to go into conversations of relativity in turnout between the north and south has something to do with what I told you earlier. There is, the Anambra, for instance, most of the southeast states have always had a situation in which governments have been not particularly too relevant for community help. Most of the facilities you see in communities are built by the muscles and strength of members of those communities. And so government does not really, and for a place like Anambra that is upscale in terms of, enterprise, private enterprise, you will see that even the chairman of the Onitsha main market that is closed down today for this purpose of election was on air yesterday saying what this means to them, that it means so much to close the market on a Saturday. So if you are looking at the play within the southern part of the country and the north, power and government means quite a lot in the north. But in the south, quite a lot of people, as we say in local panels, they no send government. They are government on their own. They provide their own water. They provide their own medicines. The most of the schools that you see were built through community efforts. You understand? So with that kind of situation, you are not going to expect them to relate to issues of civic responsibility the same way somebody in probably other parts of the country will respond.
And let's talk about the reports coming from observers. Because most times what we get is pre-election reports, preliminary report during the election and post-election reports. But how important is that preliminary report by observers, even just before INEC releases its own reports?
Well, there are different kinds of reports. There are reports that are anecdotal, and there is a report that is data-driven. For instance, the one that IAGA does is data-driven, so it's based on statistics, and it can look at the polls and say in terms of percentage. For instance, IAGA is saying now that 49% of the polling stations opened by 7:30, which is an improvement from what it was in 2021. They are able to do that through random sampling. But there are those who, based on anecdotal reports and the rest of them. But all of these reports is meant to improve the process. So if you have a midday report, for instance, it can help the Independent National Electoral Commission, it can help the security agencies to be able to troubleshoot where necessary. That is something that is important, and it does not have to wait for the future, which is what election observation ordinarily will be. But you also now have situation room, the civil society situation room, that is not just also providing reports, but also interfacing with the different stakeholders to be able to ensure that things work more smoothly than it used to be. But what we need to avoid is to allow politicians to give us talking points, because the lens with which they view elections is different. The lens with which they view election is outcome. Preferable outcome for them. If the outcome is positive for them, then the election went very well. But for the observers, they are process watchers. They look at how the different stakeholders perform their responsibility and are able to provide insight into what can be done immediately to ensure that things work smoothly, and also how to better elections in the future. So that's the difference. The relevance of election observation is to the extent that it is able to ensure that the different stakeholders behave responsibly in the immediate, and also to see how you can help shape things in the future.
All right, Mr. Abia, I'm going to come to you on this matter of voter awareness. For voter awareness, I believe political parties are supposed to be the one to educate voters, talk to them about, the things that they need to know. But why do you think Nigerian political parties, they don't really do that? I need your opinion on this one.
So that they can actually, they focus more attention on canvassing for votes than on actually educating the voters, because they feel that if you canvass for votes, they vote for you, not necessarily based on important indices in terms of what you have done so far, if you have been in office, and what you're going to do, or in terms of your manifesto, but simply the mere fact that they use other means to canvass for votes, tell the public that, because also, if you look at our elections, there's also this issue of identity politics and other factors that come into, other extraneous factors that shouldn't actually be the driving force for voting, that come into account when voters want to vote. So politicians, come out basing on these things, focusing on this messaging to the voters, instead of laying emphasis on the actual points relevant for voter education. For instance, how do voters conduct themselves on election day? What are the issues? What are the issues that are important for the voters, to take note of in terms of knowing what the electoral system benefits, what they can benefit from the electoral system and from the political system in general. So you find that political parties do not really want to do this. Then there's also the point of the issue of funding. Now, the people who fund political parties, because the system of funding of political parties is not through general contributions as it ought to be, there are individuals, usually individuals, big individuals who sponsor political parties, who fund political parties. And when they put their money out, what they put their money out is for simply getting the votes of the voter, and not exactly letting the voter understand the electoral system, understand his role in the electoral process, because possibly the politician also thinks that if these voters are well informed, they may take a different decision in terms of voting. So I think that is part of the reasons why the political parties do not take this function very seriously. Then again, it is not only the political parties that should do voter education. If you look at the various laws and even the constitution. Now, you will also have the INEC as a body that should also do voter education. I don't know how much INEC of that INEC does. Then you also have the National Orientation Agency, which is an agency of government for national orientation, and you would expect that voter education, it should be one of the things they focus on. But I do not think that so far that the National Orientation Agency has actually taken this
Mr. Abia, I know that you're making a very critical point. Please just allow us to put you on hold.
So there are, first of all,
Mr. Abia, just a minute. We'll let you continue your thoughts in just a moment. We need to get an update from the field. We understand that counting and sorting sorting and counting rather has started in some polling units. We want to bring in our senior correspondent, Solomon Ajiziogu, who is live for us, to just give us update. Solomon, this election in some polling units, we understand, is now at the critical stage where you find that the sticking points begin to come up, and politicians decide whether they want to pursue litigation or not. Just give us update as to the counting or sorting and counting process where you are.
So I'm in Ekulobia, one ward at Paragon Pharmacy, polling unit 032 in Aguata local government area of Anambra State. This is a funny polling unit of just 58 registered voters, and voting has ended. Counting and sorting and the verification of results by the party agents is going on at the moment. You can see by the side there some of the party agents signing the documents to show that they witnessed the voting, the counting, and all of it. It's amazing that you have a polling unit in a place like this, the Ekulobia 1. We were also at the Ekulobia 2, where you have two polling units. One had 65 registered voters, and the one beside it, polling unit 003, had over 1,400 registered voters, while the other one has just 65. And we wonder what disparity in number that represents. But as it is, the 58 registered voters, if all of them voted here, the voting has ended. The counting, sorting and counting has also ended, and the party agents are taking the record of the result. If you would allow me, I'd like to call on the presiding officer if he will be willing to talk with us to tell us how it went here. Presiding officer, well, I guess he has, he just took a walk, but once he comes here now, I will be able to talk with him. But what has happened here is that the party agents appear to be satisfied here in Ekulobia 1 ward, Paragon Pharmacy, polling unit 032, where 58 registered voters have cast the ballot. I would have loved to have him tell us if it was the entire 58 of them that voted here. But it's one of those polling units where you have a very small number of people, when in some other places, polling unit 003 in Ekulobia 2, that has 1,400, and the one in Usuopia in polling unit 002, where the governor voted, that has more than 900 persons. We understand that in INEX system, once you have more than 500 registered voters in a place, there is always this attempt to split it to give them more polling units in those places. Well, the presiding officer is here, who oversaw the voting here. Please come closer. Who oversaw the voting here in Ekulobia 1, polling unit 032. Can we get to meet you? Yeah. So tell us, registered voters here 58. So tell us the mechanics of the voting here. Yeah.
Okay, the voting here was very nice, smooth, and entertaining. We had 58 registered voters. The turnout was very poor. This time that those who registered voters come and vote. At the end of the day, we had 1 registered voters and registered voters out of 58. So we encourage people to come out to vote as next. That's all.
So you've heard it from what you said, the horse's mouth, the presiding officer here, who has just told us 58 registered voters, only 31 accredited to vote. Well, that's more than 50% of the registered voters. So if you take a sample here, then you say that there was more than 50% turnout at this polling unit, even though you think it is low.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, Solomon, from what you've observed, how would you assess the professionalism and the composure of the polling and collation officers on duty?
Well, you have seen the polling officer, the presiding officer here, he's been very professional. He put everybody in line. Before I came on to talk with you, you saw the visuals that were transmitted as he took time after voting. He waited till it was 2:30. Before it was 2:30, he announced to the people that when it is 2:30, voting will close, and then sorting and counting will begin. He did exactly the same thing he told them even before it was 2:30. And when 2:30 came, he began that. He began counting, he began sorting, he began counting, and then he showed everything. When some of the agents tried to get ahead of themselves to try to snap, he said, no, verification of the result has not been concluded. And then he took his time to get all of them to sign, to stamp the result, to sign it before he eventually allowed them to have their own copy of it and then to snap it.
And Solomon, speak to us about, because again, the party agents are a major part of this election. One of the issues we've heard over and over again is that parties, for example, you have 16 candidates, but in some polling units, you will not have up to representative from 5 political parties. And then they take some of these results to the collation center or even to court in a place where they did not have party agents. First of all, speak to us about how many party agents are present in that polling unit. And then I know you started talking about it, the conduct of these party agents.
Well, the thing is, you saw the picture of the party agents signing. I would ask the presiding officer, were all the party agents for the 16 parties present here, or how many of them were here to sign?
Okay, we have few party agents present, especially those who were in the field. We have the Labour Party, we have the YPP, we have the ABDA, and we have the APC.
I thought
ones that were present at the during time of the election.
I thought you had also the ADC candidate, even though they did not score a vote here, who also signed. Right. So you had that. So you had that. Not all the parties presented agents here. They probably know where they will do well and where they will not do well. So they will choose the battles they want to fight. But the party agents, you have just had the names of the parties that were here who signed the document to authenticate the result of the votes that are being cast here in Ekulobia, one ward, polling unit 00032 in front of Paragon Pharmacy here in Ekulobia, Agwata local government of Anambra State.
Okay, now just to add a little bit to what Precious said, how are the party agents and the observers, how are they reacting to the conduct of the counting and the sorting process? Do you think they look satisfied or maybe skeptical?
Well, you saw it on TV. They say pictures don't lie. This is not just a picture. This was audio-visual. You saw the counting. You saw the agent signing. Nobody refused to sign, including the other party that seemed to have not scored anything. He signed because he witnessed the voting. And because he registered to be one of the agents representing a political party here, what did he do? He had to sign to authenticate, to validate the result. They did not protest. They were even very, they assisted the presiding officer to do what he needed to do. If they feel he was going out of line, they will say, no, we don't want that. And then the presiding officer will also tell them, okay, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. I think that there is a general resolve by the Anambra that this vote must hold. It must hold peacefully. It must be free and fair. So far, it's been free. It's been fair. If there are infractions, we'll get to know in some places. If there are, we'll get to know when the final counts come in. But here in polling unit 032, in Ekulobia, one ward, in front of Paragon Pharmacy, in Agwata local government area of Anambra State, voting has concluded. 58 registered voters there, 31 of them are accredited to vote. They've been counted. We now know who won in this ward or in this polling unit.
All right, thank you so much, Solomon, our serial correspondent live for us. I like the way he's calling the Ekulobia
Even though he's an Edo man.
No, he's, I mean, the 001, 002 polling unit. Thank you so much, Solomon. All right, we'll take a break now. We'll still have our guests, so we'll let Mr. Abia conclude his thought when we return. And then we'll just look at critically some of the things that Solomon said, which are quite critical. 65 or 68 registered voters, 31 showed up. We'll get more on that in just a moment. Stay with us, everyone.
You are jogging? Since when? Freshio, a good source of vitamins A, B6, B12, D, and zinc that keeps you active and refreshed on the go.
You're so full of life these days, Ike. Since when?
Hey, it's Friday.
Party tonight?
After this long day of work, and you too, since when?
Freshio, wholesome goodness every day. Grab your bottle now.
We've got news. Freshio Kids Pack is back with a straw hole. The world needs moms. With a splash of golden Terra oil, a mom can transform a frown into a smile. Change no thanks into yes please. Resolve family feuds without blowing a whistle. Providing tasty family meals is all that matters. Where there are moms, there is love. Golden Terra oil, pour pure love.
Ike, you are jogging? Since when?
Freshio, a good source of vitamins A, B6, B12, D, and zinc that keeps you active and refreshed on the go.
You're so full of life these days, Ike. Since when?
Hey, it's Friday.
Party tonight?
After this long day of work, and you too, since when?
Freshio, wholesome goodness every day. Grab your bottle now.
We've got news. Freshio Kids Pack is back with a straw hole.
Get ready to step into the heartbeat of your city like never before. Welcome to Events Diary, where every moment is a celebration. From the electric energy of Owambe extravaganza, to the richness of our culture, to the sophistication of corporate gatherings, Events Diary is your VIP pass to the hottest gatherings in Nigeria. And guess what? I'll be your guide, your style icon. Each week, join me as I transform from traditional chic to corporate sleek. Whether it's a birthday bash or a high-profile gala, you won't just see it. You'll feel like you're right there with me. Aww. From meetings to evening soirees, I'll be there. Or to the trendiest street festivals or to music concerts, Events Diary has something for everyone. So join me as we explore the vibrant tapestry of Nigerian scene, one event at a time.
From Lagos to the world, TVC Communications has been nominated for its very first international award, the prestigious AIB. It's a recognition of our voice, vision, innovation, and relentless drive to push beyond boundaries. TVC Communications, Nigerian excellence on the world stage.
I'm Nifemi Oguntoye, news anchor with TVC News. My day is usually busy and it's difficult keeping up with breaking news stories, trending stories, business news, stock exchange and what have you. But with TVC News on WhatsApp, I'm able to catch up with all the breaking news, real-time updates and trending stories on the go, right on my phone, no matter where I am. It's quick, easy and always on. And here you can join us by scanning the QR code or using the link on our X and Instagram. Why wait? Come to the side of news that keeps you ahead. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Yaa Ashantewa was born on 17th October 1814 Bisiase, present-day Ghana. The daughter of Kwaku Ampoma and Atapo, her brother Afran Epanin became the chief of Edweso, a nearby community. After a childhood without incident, she cultivated crops on the land around Boankra. She entered a polygamous marriage with a man from Kumasi, with whom she had a daughter. She was appointed by her brother, Nana Akwasi Afrane Opese, ruler of Edweso, When her brother died in 1894, Ya Ashantiwa used her right as Queen Mother to nominate her own grandson as Ejisuhene, when the British exiled her grandson to the Seychelles in 1896. Along with the King of Ashanti Prempeh I and other members of the Ashanti government, Ya Ashantiwa became the regent of the Ejisu Juaben district in the Ashanti Empire, now part of modern-day Ghana. After the exile of Prempeh I, Old Coast, Frederick Hodgson demanded the golden stool, the symbol of the Ashanti nation. There was a disagreement among the members of the Ashanti government at Kumasi on how to go about this. In 1900, she led the Ashanti War, also known as the War of the Golden Stool, against the British Empire. The Ashanti-British War of the Golden Stool, also known as the Ya Ashantiwa War, was led by Queen Mother Nana Ya Ashantiwa, with a queen and a war leader. Nana Ya Ashantiwa died in exile at the Seychelles on 17th October 1921.
All right, thanks everyone for staying with us on Anambra Decides on TVC News as we continue our live coverage of the Anambra governorship election, where we have 16 candidates, 14 of them male and 2 females. We've been monitoring that election. We have reporters on the field bringing us updates. In some polling units at this moment, we have sorting and counting already ongoing. We also have a reporter live for us in the situation room there. Anytime, any moment, we'll know that the observers will bring, or CSOs will bring in their preliminary report. Also, we have 2 guests standing by for us, both of them, one in our Abuja studio, the other on Zoom. We have lawyer Jimmy Abia and a CSO himself, Mr. Owangu. Thank you both for standing by for us.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so Mr. Abia, I did promise. I don't know if you want to continue without your thoughts, so you can land on it, and then we can just look critically.
Let me just round up.
All right, round up, please.
Let me just round up. Yes. So it is important that we note that both the political parties and INEC have that constitutional role of voter education, and also by extension, based on the mandate of the National Orientation Agency, they also have that role. Then also the civil society also has that role. But you will find out that amongst all these bodies mentioned is usually the civil society organizations that actually perform this task of voter education. So it is important that all these other bodies, take this responsibility more seriously going forward.
All right, let's bring in Mr. Owangu to the conversation now. We're listening to our senior correspondent there, Solomon, and he mentioned something that I thought was quite critical. And just recently in Delta State, we've heard about the delineation exercise of INEC and how it is causing some level of chaos. And he said that in one polling unit, you have over 1,000 registered voters. In another, maybe just about, I think he said 68. And I'm wondering, does that speak to the delineation exercise of INEC, and is it time to review it?
No, I think delineation is different. INEC created additional polling units. Remember that voting points were eliminated. What used to happen was that INEC used to create different voting points. So in the allocation of voters to the new polling units, there is some imbalance. I think what they need to do is to review that, how voters were then distributed to the different, the additional over 50,000 additional polling units, which was indeed a very difficult thing to do before, which the commission was able to pull through before 2023 or before 2019 election. So it's not, the delineation is a different kettle of fish, but this is just the consequence of the creation of new polling units and how voters were then distributed to those polling units. Having said that, I just want to make a little point about the political parties and the process that we are going into now. The preliminary reports are already showing that the ABGA in the election has 98% polling agents in the polling, 98% of polling agents in the polling units in Anambra State. The APC has just a little over 80% polling agents, and then the Labour Party has 43%, while the others have and this has consequences, because we continue to make this point about if you want to participate in this election, results are already being mined from polling units. And if results are mined from polling units, a very serious political party should have its own result viewing portal, which it can make available to journalists and even civil society observers and other international observers that are around to say, come to our own situation room as a political party, look at what our agents are bringing. And then when eventually the collation, the general collation is going on, you can, on the basis of what you have from your own collated results. But if you have 43% party agents throughout the states, and you have, you can't really, in all honesty, be contesting results that in a place where you don't have party agents. So I think that we should reinforce this point about the need for political parties to invest in making sure that members of their political parties participate as agents to be able to oversee, because the agents are representatives of the candidates in the polling unit. And if they are able to mine results from that polling unit, even before results are called, returns are made on the election, they should be able to. And that's what happens in other places. People talk about Ghana. It is the strength of the political parties that makes it easy for political candidates to be able to congratulate their opponents, because before even the close of polls, their own situation room and their party agents have already shown them how they are doing in the election. But that's not what we currently have here.
Okay, I like the fact that you talked about party agents, because according to our senior reporter, he said that not all the party agents showed up at the collation center. Now, I want to ask, political parties that can't fund party agents, should we still call that a political party?
Well, I think my colleague Abiadia talked about the fact that we expect political parties not to be funded by heavy deep pockets or individuals, because once an individual funds the party or individuals fund the party, they control it. If you have a situation in which you have people paying, making contributions to the party or paying party dues, then you are able to have a nominal role of the members of your party. As we speak today, one of the big challenges of our political parties is that you don't even know who is a member. The fluidity of movement from one party to the other, the activation of waiver makes it difficult for you to know. You can be in this party in the morning and in the evening you have gone to another party. And then even in the communities, even you that is speaking now, if you go to your village, it is possible that your name is in a party register, and you have never registered there, and you may even have a party card. So the fluidity and the lack of organization of our political parties in the strict sense of what a political party should do and how it should function is part of the diminishing factors for our electoral process.
And back to Mr. Abia, in this issue of of having political party agents rather in polling units, I'm wondering, because some will say, look, it's an issue of funding, but for others, I know analysts like yourself have come up with the term of contender pretenders in terms of candidates. Is it also probably because they know, well, we're just here just to make a name for ourselves and not necessarily to win this election, and so let's not spend so much money on feeding agents? And how should INEC, because when you look at a party who is not consistently feeding party agents in polling units, shouldn't INEC begin to react to that in terms of using that as a yardstick to deregister political parties?
Okay, well, yes, you'll find that in almost every election, you'll find that there are people who are serious contenders and people who are not such, probably in the public space, who do not so much seem to be serious contenders. But how do you determine whether someone is actually in real, for a fact that someone is not really interested in the process as much? Because there may be a number of issues that might actually lead to, which is not, we are not saying it's justifiable, but there may be a number of issues that will lead to political candidates not necessarily having as much agents at the political at the polling units. So these varied issues, you can't necessarily tie it for a fact to seriousness or non-seriousness. It could be the fact of we've mentioned funding. There could also be some logistical issues. There could also be issue of party loyalty, because in some instances you might have funded agents to go there, but they saw some higher bidder and then they do some other things. So there are a number of factors. I do not think that it is an issue for INEC to now deregister political parties. Of course, the fact that political parties do not, if they do not do their job well, and the candidates do not do their job well, of course it will affect their election result, because you may find them not coming up tops in the elections. So now that will now become the ground for INEC to deregister if they do not meet the required numbers of seats, for them to stay as a political party. Then that will now become a reason for INEC to deregister based on the amendment, to the Constitution.
Sorry, I just want to follow up with Mr. Jimmy Abia, because I know you are a lawyer. Because I would think that this is one of the reasons we have very frivolous cases, election cases in court, where you have candidates who are contesting results from polling units where they did not even have party agents. In terms of the legal aspect of this, how should it also be handled?
Oh, well, the election, when it comes to court, now this is where it's also important that parties do their jobs well, because the results which are collated, which are also given to, because these party agents are meant to collect a copy of the result sheet at those units, and it will also form a basis for their election matter in court. It will also form part of the evidence for so that if they are coming to speak to an election, which they said, it has to be someone who witnessed it, so that it is not hearsay, someone who witnessed what happened there. So for instance, if you do not have a polling unit agent at that polling unit, how do you now speak to what happened at that polling unit? So it's important for political parties. I think a political party that does not do what it should do, for instance, in terms of having agents at the polling unit, has actually shortchanged itself. So it is something I think the parties on their own should be left to, bear the consequences. Because first of all, it will affect them in the result of the election. 2, it will affect any matter they are taking to court. Then 3, it could also lead to their deregistration. So it is something to, there are consequences for it already, which I think, the parties should bear for their dereliction of their responsibility.
All right, Mr. Ezewa, I'm going to be throwing that same question to you. Do you think political parties that can't fund party agents to monitor elections, do you think INEC should review their registration or maybe deregister them?
No, absolutely no for me. And the reason is simple. The fact that you don't have agents does not substantially affect the election in any material particular, as people like Abia will say. It does not affect it, because at the end of the day, it is for your own benefit that you collect the Form EC8A in case you want to proceed. But we have always creamed the indolence of the politicians, their inability to take their responsibility seriously. We paper over it, and what then happens is that at the end of the election, you see somebody who probably has less than 50% party agents in an election coming to say he's coming to claim his mandate. I think what needs to happen is that we will need to do perhaps what the Americans do in terms of litigation. When people come to court, we should be able to decide which one progresses further, so that at the end of the day, you don't start counting when people say, oh, the number of litigations in court has something to do with the quality of the election. It's, in many cases, sometimes some of even the litigations that you have in court are pre-election litigations. Most of the time, they do not have something substantially to do with the conduct of the election itself. And so if as your colleague there said, frivolous litigations that are coming on the basis of you're not preparing, but deregistration is a different matter. In fact, personally, I don't think INEC has any business registering political parties. I think it should set conditions for appearing on the ballot. If you fulfill certain conditions, you appear on the ballot. We need to expand the democratic space in a way that the right to be a political party is, as enshrined in the Constitution for freedom of assembly and association, be guaranteed. But if you now want to appear on the ballot, INEC can say this is what and what you need to be able to fulfill to do so.
Mr. Wango will also place you on hold because critical points you're making there. We've seen that in the national election and presidential election, and also Edo State election, where witnesses, you can have over 100 witnesses and only 2 of them are credible. We'll come back to that conversation. We want to get update from Solomon Ajuziogu, who is in another polling unit at the moment, to give us updates. Solomon, what more can you tell us at this moment? Has sorting accounting also started where you are?
Well, so we are at one of the mega polling, well, it seems mega to me because there are over 800 registered voters here inside a canopy of forest here at Uzozwegu. Uzozwegu Square here in Ekulobia 1 in Anambra State, here, Agwata local government, where the votes have been cast. The sorting and counting have also been held, and well, such a wonderful turnout it seems here. There are 2 polling units opposite each other here, and they've done all the counting. And when the counting was going on, it was some chorusing of the result of the counting here. In fact, if I'm sure you took that live. It would have been nice if we could play up the counting when it was going on, so that you see the excitement of the people here in Agwata local government. Of course, it's a home local government of the governor. This is in Ekulobia 1. Of course, we also were at Ekulobia 2, where near St. Paul's Catholic Church, where we have 2 polling units. The disparity in number, where you had a polling unit with 1,485, and then another polling unit with just 65 or 58 registered voters. Here, you have over 800 registered voters, 819, I think, and the votes have come in. There are lorry loads, as it were. You had the counting the other time where a particular candidate scored up to 170. So for the people here, they seem happy. It only shows one result by ND Anambra, that they just wanted this vote to count. They voted freely, they voted fairly, it's been peaceful. All of the tension that preceded this election, all of the tension, we have not seen a manifestation of any of that tension, at least in this local government, Agwata local government. We've not seen it in Usofia, where the governor came to vote. We've not seen it in Ekulobia. And we have not seen it in any other place here. The people have voted, they are happy. Even the party agents here are sitting just beside each other. No tension. I saw them sharing words with some of the other people, and they were taunting each other. And they did not take offense, both the losing ones and the winning ones. So it's peaceful. The presiding officers are signing the result sheets now and waiting for them to also come and sign to authenticate the results, the outcomes that we have seen here today. But I must tell you here in Ezezwegu, Ekulobia 1, that is the polling unit here, Ezezwegu square. Well, it's a square, but I see trees and forests everywhere. And we are here enjoying ourselves voting, witnessing a peaceful voting here by the people of Anambra.
Solomon, I noticed that it was quite difficult for you to pronounce that name earlier. Well done, you tried. But I wanted to ask you, because Agwata is one of the flashpoints that was identified by the police, and you have mentioned in some of the polling units you've been to, is being quite peaceful. Talk to us about the deployment of security and the conduct, if this is a deployment of security that is responsible, or just the conduct of the residents?
Well, by the election rules, what you would have is that at least at the polling units where people are casting the ballot, at least 3 civil police officers. I don't want to, well, for emphasis, civil police officers, and there's a reason for that. You know, you have the mobile police force, you have the counterterrorism unit, you also have the Secret Service, the military-grade counterterrorism unit. We saw them parading everywhere, especially in Sofia. Of course, you know, that's the home of the governor, and the governor always has security, you know. But here, maybe there's no need for it at all, because what you have here is a peaceful family gathering of the Anambra voting. Even though there are other parties here, everybody is peaceful. They've enjoyed it. It's a sport. You know, politics is also a level of sport. So where in the Sofa you had gun trucks, you had people with gun trucks and APCs and all of them, how much personal career I mean there. Here, you just have the police officers watching, observing. They are having no trouble at all with anybody. And the people are happy counting and shouting as they count.
And also the party agents for the other parties, are they satisfied with the conduct of the election?
Well, about satisfaction, we'll have to wait for the signing of the papers. Once the party agents sign the papers for the results, it shows they are satisfied. In any case, there has been no protest. There has been no protest of any kind as they stand up now to try to sign to authenticate this result. They are willing to sign because they have seen that it's been open, it's been free, and it seems it's been fair for them. It's a sport. Somebody has to win. Someone, well, I wouldn't say lose, but someone has to win this contest. And it seems someone has won the contest in this place. The parties seem satisfied as their agents are sitting calmly, quietly, acknowledging what has transpired here in Ezezuebu, Ekulobia 1 polling unit in Aguata local government of Anambra State.
And finally, before I let you go, were there reports of vote buying or anything of sorts?
Vote buying. From the faces that I see here. Now, we are in the governor's local government. Does he need to incentivize them in terms of having to buy their vote when he is their son? Does anybody need to incentivize anybody with any corrupt practice? Yeah, it's been an open contest, I must tell you. Maybe in other local governments, we can then begin to get the feedback from those places. But from the report we have seen, I think that the Anambra have beat all expectations about this election. All the narratives about tension and about problems, I have not seen anyone on my way to this place from Oka, passing through Amobia, going through all the streets, all the villages, and getting all the way to Ethiopia. And you know, sometimes people come to the east and they're like, oh, the express road will pass through the forest, and you don't know what can happen to you. But you see, for me here, it's been a wonderful thing. The only thing I have about maybe the Anambra have to do a little more about, one, information management around anything they do. I think that I'll score them a bit low on information management. And then the other thing is that I think there is everybody here who wants to show that he's just somebody or something, you know, or something. But on the ballot here, maybe what they need to do more is to prove Nigerians wrong. 4 years ago, only 10% of registered voters in Anambra turned up. A state that has produced a vice president in this country before, a state that has produced speaker of the federal government, a state that has produced Senate president of the federal government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I think that the people of Anambra need to turn out more to vote. So from the ones we have seen so far, at the Columbia 1 Paragon Pharmacy 032 polling unit, 58 registered voters, 31 turned out to vote. You might say that that is low, but that is over 50%. So if you are doing the measurement here, well, it seems I do not know yet what the total turnout here has been, but we will hear from the presiding officers when they begin to announce the result, because they have to announce that when they are declaring the result. And we will wait on them to do that, to know the total number of accredited voters here as against the 819, I think, of registered voters in this polling unit.
All right, thank you so much, Solomon. We will let you continue your tour of Ekulobia, Iswafia, Agwata local government. I'm sure we'll get more updates from him. Our senior correspondent, Solomon Ajuzugu, live for us in Ekulobia 2 in Anambra State. All right, let's bring in our guest back to the conversation. Mr. Jimmy Abia, again, back to that issue of party agents. Solomon, I mean, they have not announced the results at that polling unit, so he said he's waiting for their reaction. But in some cases, the first polling unit he went to, we saw how excited, or he said everyone accepted the results. But sometimes they accept at the polling unit, the ward level, and then the local government sometimes too, and then they go to the state collation center to complain. I'm wondering what you make of that.
Oh, well, you know that the agent, the polling unit agent is not necessarily the one, who will be at the state collation center. So I think that what happens at that level is that the party would probably have had an overview. So even if an agent has accepted the result at the polling unit, at the collation point, the agent of the political party would probably have had an overview of what came in from different parts of the state or different parts of a local government, if it's a local government coalition, and then being able to say for whether, maybe have a more informed position on it. Of course, sometimes they will definitely be wrong, but that's what probably yields different outcomes from what is accepted at the polling unit and then what is contested at the coalition level.
But the thing is, why the discrepancy? Why can't we have that transparency whereby there's a particular figure at the polling unit at the local level, but when it gets to the state level, there's always this discrepancy?
Now, if there's real-time, technological infrastructure in it, and now I won't go into expressly what I would have thought, because it will take us a bit of a while, trying to explain it. But I think that there should be more technological input in such a way that the result, which comes from the polling unit, is exactly the same thing that he gets to the collation center. If that is brought in by technology, if that system is actually assisted by technology expressly, of course we have something similar, but not exactly as I would want it. I would have wanted a situation where there is electronic voting, and then electronic collation. Probably there might also be the manual one to cross-check with it, but there should be electronic voting, electronic collation. So things done real time, so that everybody is seeing it as you vote. It reflects immediately. So I believe that if things are done this way, and of course the parties are given access to ensure that that process is also credible, because technology is also as good as people who man it. I think if parties are given that opportunity to also ensure its credibility, I think it will help to reduce the tensions, at the collation point.
Mr. Owangu, sometimes we've seen political parties even contest the figures on IREV. Some of these political parties do not have their own vote tabulation system, no situation room, nothing, no technology whatsoever they are using to collate this result, just depending, sometimes even on what people put on social media. I'm just wondering what the implication of that is if you're going to go to court, for example, to contest the results and you do not have any technology in place, any mechanism for, vote tabulation yourself.
Go to court yet. Let's just stay at the simple business of collecting from EC8A as a party agent. And there is a relationship between the party agent and a party agent supervisor, for instance. And then there is also a collation, a party situation room through just ordinary text message from the polling unit. From the polling unit, you are able to snap the same way the presiding officer in the polling unit snaps and uploads into an IREV. If the parties were able to be disciplined enough and coordinated enough to have that, when they come to collation center, you will not see the complete disorganization and lack of coordination that exists between the party collation agent and the polling unit agent. The truth of the matter is that the transactional nature of the engagement of the party agents makes it difficult sometimes that they could either trade their parties even at the polling unit. And even when they collect the form EC8A, you eventually find those forms with granite sellers and akara sellers in many situations. So the point is that we have constantly given comfort to the political parties in their inability to do due diligence and then come to collation centers with results. Now, the law is very simple. If you come to the collation center and say, in polling unit 001, the results our party agent has, and you show it, and say it is different from what you are announcing here right now, the law says that the returning officer should immediately go to the IREV, and that the results in the IREV will subsist. But even if you watch, and happily for us, TVC and other television and other stations beam most of these collation centers live, you will find out that everything that is done there is just verbally. There is nobody using data, using documents to confront the figures that are being read. Somebody will take a microphone and address the press and say the results have been manipulated. And then you say, where are the results from your polling units, agents? And they say, oh, no, why will you be depending on IREV, INEC's own IREV? Why will you be depending on election observers? Why will you be depending on what you call citizen observers, who you don't know which shrine and from which pond they drink from, politically speaking? So the politicians and their candidates are not investing in ensuring that they are able to also mine these results and use the law that currently exists to evidence whatever interrogation they are going to be doing at the collation center. But like my colleague said, what we need to do now is to invest in where we can, because it has to run together. Where we can, there has to be electronic collation and going side by side with manual. But what we have now is not electronic collation. It is still the upload of still pictures into a viewing portal. And that for me is not sufficient in terms of transparency and integrity of the process.
Okay, looking at some of the reports our senior correspondent actually gave us, he said that 4 years ago, only 10% of registered voters actually turned out. And he said that this is an improvement. Some of them, he said, out of 68 registered voters, 31 voters showed up. And can we still call this voter apathy? Because this is more than 50% in some of the polling units.
I think we have to wait. I think we have to wait. And we have to wait because at the end of the day, turnout will be aggregated based on what you are getting from the 21 local governments in Anambra State. I was in Anambra in 2017. I was there in 2021. and it doesn't look like it is different. In 2021, there are other reasons why it went to 10%. It was not just so much, but like I said, even in 2017, what was the turnout? The turnout was less than 14, it was 14% or thereabout. So the big thing for Anambra is for us to wait and see what the collective looks like before we can make a call on voter turnout. Because polling units results do not give you a bird eye view of what has taken place in all the polling units that are where these elections today are being conducted.
All right, so I want to go to Mr. Abia now and return to the conversation on use of technology. And I want to ask you if you have any concerns so far in our deployment of technology in this election, because Mr. Wango also mentioned something quite important, having electronic collation even at the polling units.
Yes, it's important, but this is, going forward, it's something that the laws will need to be tinkered with, and probably INEC regulations on what they are going to utilize in election. Of course, the technology has been included in the Electoral Act, but how to now tweak it. So it will need a further tweaking to get it to the point of electronic collation real time. I think some of these things will help, in improving, but that's not exactly for this election. What I think is, of course, we wait to see. We can't say exactly at this point what will be the general overview in terms of the performance of technology so far with the BVAS, the IREF as it exists today. We cannot, I cannot say for certain. Of course, the civil society and other groups monitor.
Ms. Abia, please go ahead. Ms. Abia, go ahead. I can hear you.
190.
Of course, currently, civil society might have what they, see as anecdotal or preliminary observations on the utilization of technology. But from where we sit to now, currently, we can't say for certain how well technology has performed until after the election is done with. But I'm saying that the improvements which I have clamored for, and which my colleague has also mentioned in terms of electronic collation, is something for elections of the future. Going after this particular election, it can't be done now. It cannot be done now. It will have to involve some tinkering, either with INEC regulations on what they are going to utilize, or possibly also get to the point of the amendment of the law, in terms of including it, because of what we had in judgments post 2023 about the regulations.
All right, we'll continue with this conversation later. We need to go on this quick break, and when we return, Anambra Decides continues.
Doubt and fear doesn't occur at the canvas, it shows in the canvas. It shows the conation of raw earthen material slabbed, stroked and molded at a pace